Hey there, I'm Carrie, social worker and founder of PlayMotion Kids. Welcome to Wait, Am I Saving the World? This podcast is for people shaping childhood at home, in classrooms, and beyond. Around here, we're having real conversations about what it takes to raise the next generation of change makers. We talk child welfare, child development, parenting, education, and everything it takes to show up for kids without losing yourself or your sanity in the process. I'm so glad you're here. Hello, everybody. This is Carrie with Wait, Am I Saving the World? And today I have the fabulous Stacy Schaffer with me. She is a child and adolescent therapist, and she has recently written a book with love from a children's therapist. And I am so excited to have her on to talk a little bit about her experience and to get some more information. Stacy, if you would tell everybody a little bit about your background and what inspired you, or how did you get to the point to where you're like, I think I'm going to tackle writing a book.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Well, so lots of things contributed, right? As it were. I would say it was about like 10 or so years ago that I was like, I really have things to say. And there were a lot of universal things I was hearing, like as a child, adolescent, young adult therapist, that I wanted the greater world to hear because not everyone has the luxury to bring their kids to counseling. It is a luxury, especially in today's day and age. And I'm like, I want something to be accessible for like anybody who's interested. And then kind of around the same time ish, I started doing like my own deeper like inner healing work. And I was like, well, there are things to say from that. There's quite a lot of things to say from that. So it's like sort of combined. It was originally intended just to be through the lens of what I'm hearing on the other side of the couch, but it kind of turned into there's a lot of um, wisdom to transmute from a traumatic childhood, and so those things together like became Neba, which is
Yeah,
pretty.
it is pretty. Yes. That's awesome. And I like how you mentioned that some of it came from doing your own healing work. So one of my favorite parts in the book, because I did listen to the audiobook, is if you don't heal from what hurt you, you'll bleed on people who didn't cut you. And I'm curious how that belief or following that has affected you in general, how it led you on this journey, and how you think that, or what it's taught you about how we should show up, especially people in the type of career or industry that you're in, and all the people that are in helping roles, right? What should they be looking at or thinking about so that they can actually show up for the people they're trying to help?
Yeah. I mean, I think like it is a bit of a known thing that like people don't end up as therapists by like accident, that you and usually like there's a specialty based on like woundedness. I think some of the challenge is us trying to take people further than where we've been. So my mom died when I had just turned 22. It was 2001. It was the same year, September 11th. So like forever ago. So when they announced like how many years ago it was, I was like, oh, a really long time ago. Um, and so she died. I was still in college, but I was headed to grad school. And I was like, oh, well, grief, because like that's what I was moving through, which was absolutely real and authentic and all of those things. But there's a whole deeper layer there of stuff that I was like, we're gonna not go there. And so I tried to really like build a life on like, yeah, that's a lot of my identity is like moving through grief because I don't have any living family. And so I know grief. And so, but there were things that were like, I'm sure like coming out sideways, unresolved abuse issues. I'm sure I was really cold to like different men in my life. Like there are lots of ways. And so I think that before we try to save the world, we have to acknowledge the healing like child within us, which isn't always fun. And it's a lot easier to help other people.
Right. rather than helping ourselves.
Like,
I wish I could remember the statistic and I can't, so I'm probably going to get it terribly wrong. But I went to a training last week and it's a room full of advocates, social workers, counselors, psychologists, the whole thing. And they actually gave the statistic like 80% of the people in a field like that have some type of traumatic background. It's
sure.
really high. Yes. So with being a child therapist, I'm really curious. I wanted to talk to you today about the therapeutic power of play because I imagine a child in therapy looks very different than an adult. So, can you tell us a little bit about like how powerful play can be in a
Yeah.
therapeutic setting and exactly what that looks like?
For sure, for sure. So, I have 2 rooms. This one is called Twilight, the other one is called Sunshine. I have a therapy dog in training who's fast asleep because
Aw.
she's no use for Zoom and telehealth because no one's petting her. And so this room is more chill. I used to share with people before, COVID, and they decided they liked telehealth and never came back. And so I turned this into a chill room, and then the other room looks like a therapeutic Disneyland, like it just, like, exploded. It's real loud. And so, but in the center of the room, I have my friend Dave made it for me, but it is a sand tray table. And so, like, it just looks like a coffee table with like bins of slime on top because I know lots of people don't allow slime in their house, but this is my house. Um, and so you take the top off and it's like gutted and it's filled with a special kind of sand for sand tray therapy. So sand tray is a really common modality with kids because kids don't always have language for how they feel, right? And so they say the language of kids is play. And so then, like, to the side, it looks like every Happy Meal toy over time exploded and ended up in character groups. They're organized. Like, they're all you're like, "Wow, that's a lot of kids."
A lot
So,
happening.
yeah, I might have, like, duplicates of the Inside Out characters because kid therapist gold. And I tried to get the K-pop Demon Hunter ones, but the ones out right now are not quality, and that's why I went to grad school to have these kind of conversations. And so,
Well, yeah.
anyway.
This morning I was listening to call and response toddler songs, so I feel you. I'm like, I went and got a social work degree so I could to toddler songs.
Yeah, "Who's your favorite character?" I'm like, so, so there's all these, like, characters, and so there's a million different directives with Sandtray, but one is find a character to be you. Show me in the sand what it's like to be you. Sometimes if there's 2 households, I'll split the sand in half and, like, show me you in each house, and it's really powerful, because it provides a 3D image of the brain, that they don't have language for. So, for example, I had this one, it was a really high conflict divorce, like, it was a lot, and the kid picked Darth Vader as dad and a tiny mouse as mom and
Mm.
put them in the middle. And knowing the dynamics, and so I would say things like, show me what you wish Darth Vader would do, and then it's moving closer or like giving, like there's a million ways to organize it. And I went to a training once, it was a whole day on sand tray. My non-therapist friends were like, you did a whole day in sand? I'm like, it was fascinating. And so, but I volunteered to be, the client, and I was supposed to show what the biggest challenge looked like in my life. And it was like around the holiday times. And I still remember it. And I was like, oh, that's really helpful, and it's just a different way to see it. And so I always talk about sand tray and intakes with parents because I'm like, lest your child come home and say, yeah, I played in the sand at Stacy's. Like, you know what we're talking about. So that's one of the modalities. But usually, if you're a kid therapist, you have some form of sand tray because it's so like versatile. You can do so much with sand.
I mean, and everybody loves playing in sand.
Big
Even
fan.
in Yes, yes. Which makes me think in general, because you talked about how play is the language of children. What do you think adults can learn from that? Because I feel like we lose the ability to play and have fun, right? And just take a minute not to worry about things. So I'm kind of curious, what do you think adults can take away from the importance of play in general?
I mean, working with kids, like, is I mean, there's a whole spectrum of responses to how it is working with kids, but they're so much more unguarded because they have not spent years creating patterns of, like, trying to hide things. Like, I explain, talking about hard stuff to kids as, like, so if there's something that you are ashamed of and you feel, like, really ick about, it's kinda like it's like food and you hide it in your room. You can put laundry over it for a while, but then it's going to start to smell. And eventually you're going to have to get it out. And then the smell remains and you have a bigger problem. And so I love catching humans on kind of the front end of their life before they spend years and years in relationships and patterns. And it's not saying, they're not gonna have a hard time because have you been outside? They're and so, but maybe a little bit easier. But that they are like moving through stuff like in current time. And I think, it's a soapbox issue for me when people are like, "Yeah, but kids are resilient." I'm like, "Yeah, because what choice do they have?"
Right.
Like, but all my friends who were therapists for adults are like, "Yeah, what my clients are talking about in therapy is their childhood."
Mhm.
And so my hope is that it is not a survival like skill, that like it is actual resilience by giving them skills in the beginning of their life that will hopefully carry through to make things a little bit easier to be a human out there.
Right. Yes. Being a human is hard,
It's
Stacy.
really hard. I
It's
know.
hard.
Well, kids, like, it's really important to me that kids know that, like, I haven't arrived. A kid said to me not too long ago, like, "Do you think I'm crazy because I'm in counseling?" I'm like, "I met with your grand therapist the other day, and spoiler alert, you have a great grand therapist." They're like, "You have one?" I'm like, "Have you been in this world? Because it is not easy." I think all the people who are doing their work, like, are having a different experience because it's a more authentic, grounded existence, like, actually doing your work, in my opinion.
Yeah. I love that. Well, and I like how you were explaining some of the things to the kids, right? About covering up the food, but it's going to stink, which makes me think about how you described anxiety because you talk about that in the book. So tell everybody how you explain anxiety to kids
Yeah.
when they are having that.
Like, about the little guy in your brain?
Yes.
'Cause, like, I got lots of
Right.
metaphors and
Yes.
analogies. I'm like, "Is that the one?" Okay. So, because I would say that I do specialize in grief and anxiety, but I would say currently the most common issue I'm seeing kids for is anxiety because, as aforementioned. So, sometimes, like, kids come in with a lot of shame about that. And so I tell them, "Hey, your brain is actually trying to help you." So there's a little guy in your brain. And oftentimes I'll have kids like, let's come up with a name, so that there's a little bit more self compassion. Like, it's like a whole person. And so little Chloe or whatever. So Chloe's job is to help you not get eaten by a tiger. So she takes that job very seriously. The problem is that Chloe isn't always clear on what's a tiger and what's not a tiger. She's trying to help you a lot. And so what we need to do is we do not to need to get mad at her. We do not need to feel ashamed of her. When we feel like us starting to feel the anxiety in our head, like that's her trying to be like, you might need to run. And so what we need to do is remind her that she's safe. And here are things we can do so that we know that we can convince her that we're safe. We have to be like, Chloe, honey, hi. So we are actually in science class, and there is a test, but we are going to be okay. It's not a tiger, it's just a pop quiz. And so to have those conversations with her, and the fun thing is, no one can see inside your brain. You can be having all of that, no one knows, which I've always thought was really powerful that no one can see. I feel like if technology advances to that point, it will be very, very not good. And
Yes.
just have that thought
I'm
for
with you on that. Yeah.
God, like, just have that, like, thought for the first time. And I'm like, and so we can develop compassion for her because she's just trying to do her job. The problem is that she works too hard and we need to let her out the hook.
Yeah. That's amazing. So, why do you think, because you mentioned that a lot of what you're seeing right now is anxiety, do you think that we actually have an increase in anxiety in kids right now? Or do you think we're just recognizing it? Or do you think it's a combination of both? Why do you think it has increased recently?
I mean, I think that yes, awareness, so, we're more aware of the problem. I mean, my personal opinion is, with us being in America, school violence and social media, I think contribute to those things and just the busyness of the world. I think a lot of my teenagers have so much anxiety related to social media because they track each other so they can see when they're being left out. And it's an exercise in hurting your own feelings. And so I think that there's so much beauty in social media, like here we are. But I think that it's a double sided coin, and so that I feel like that's impacting just all of the ways to communicate and awareness and the world at their fingertips, knowing where everyone is at all times, seeing pictures of your friends without you. Like, I think there's that going on. But I also think it's scary to be a kid in America, frankly. I'm in this school district with the last high school shooting, Evergreen High School. And so I see kids impacted by that. And kids have valid fears about going to school that we really can't do much about an assurance that it will not happen. We can hope that lots of things are in place, but I think that I see that so often. Kids are afraid to go to school and for good reason, frankly.
Right. Yes. And you're not in the position to reassure them, right? That it
Well,
won't happen
yeah.
again.
Well, yeah, like the day, September 10th, of the Evergreen shooting, because Evergreen's a mountain town, and so lots of people like to come down the mountain to the, like, Denver area, and so I've seen lots, like, from Evergreen, and it's beautiful. And that day, like, a 7-year-old bounded in, and was like, "Did you know that there was a school shooting and it wasn't the bad guy shooting, it was the angry kid kind? You're 7. Like, why? Like, what?"
Right.
Months. And so I'm just like, yeah. And so I mean, I think that there is a lot of comfort in validation, but I mean, I will say it feels pretty powerless as a clinician to alleviate some of those things because old school helping kids with anxiety is was usually a lot of unrealistic things, like I'm afraid that this random thing, but and so I would say that that contributes to making it trickier world.
Yeah, for sure. So from that, something else that you talk about in the book is how to help kids look for signs of safety. So we talked about when they can recognize, right? And they can talk to themselves kindly when they recognize they're having anxiety. So how do you move them away from that and look for signs of safety, and how do you teach them that skill?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple ways, but one is like, I'll like stop them in the moment. Like, how do you know right now in this moment that you are safe? And they're like, "Well, I know you wouldn't let anything happen. I know Willow would, she's a golden retriever." They're like, "She would alert us that there's a person, I guess."
Right. She might lick them.
She's so cute, but not a guard dog. And as she's like snoring, they're, I know my parents in the waiting room. I know that this building is safe, those kind of things, because you need to let your body know that you're safe so that your body communicates to the brain. Because we used to think that it was the brain communicating to the body, but it's like to calm your body, so that things are okay. Like, I have a kid who had I was already seeing, but had this freak accident happen recently. And so we've talked a lot about about safety, and because like the fears are rising because it was just so bizarre. And so I'm like, what do we know to be true? What can we cling to? Because in the times of anxiety, we're untethered. And so really connecting to the here and now in this moment helps us feel safer, because if we're living in the past or the future, neither of those things are helpful to us. They just increase our anxiety. So in this moment is how I have them when they're feeling anxiety, like at school or something, I want you to start the sentence like, in this moment, I know.
Yeah, that's that's amazing. So would that be how you would tell families or parents to help them through that? Or do you have some specific things that you tell parents of your clients about how to help them at home or out in the real world?
Yeah. I love helping parents like be like a bridge of authenticity. So like if I have a kid that's like I'm really scared about this thing and like I'm like should we bring like mom in and I'll be like mom I was like is there a time that you can recall when you were a kid that you felt scared about something? And they'll be like well, yeah, like, there's this time and then the kid will be like, "You were?" I think it's important because kids see, like, parents as, like, not real, Like, "Oh, you're having a human experience? Weird." Um, and so I like the strategy of, like, normalizing you know? So that a kid, like I was saying earlier with the kid saying, like, do you think I'm crazy? I love the idea of being your parent's a human too. And so they can get it. And I think that that is healing for the parent too. It's like reparenting because probably nobody when they were 7 brought them to counseling because, the day and age and that they're like yeah I was scared and like so we start with normalizing and then like validate because I think a lot of times we want our kids to be better right away, really fast, and it ends up feeling invalidating. They're like, "You're fine. You're fine. You see, you're fine." As opposed to what tells you that you're safe, as opposed to you're safe. Like it's a different tone.
Letting them realize it for themselves, walking them
Yes.
through how to do that. Yeah.
Right. Right. And that they have the tools inside of them that they don't need me to be in their ear with my cartoon voice. Guiding kids back to themselves is pretty key. That at the end of the day, they don't need me to remind them that they're okay. They can affordable me, but they are with them at all times.
Yeah. That's awesome. So in your field right now, in general, I'm curious, what are your biggest concerns for children right now?
I get really concerned related to social media that kids are being preyed upon, and not just by sexual predators, but by marketing. And AI things are really scary. I think, there's been a lot in the news about kids making bad choices because of communicating with AI. And that's terrifying. I've seen so many kids over the years that have been groomed by someone that they thought was a friend on Roblox or Discord. And so we have more awareness of that these days to have more guards in place of like, I need to know who you're talking to and those kind of things. But I feel like it's getting a little scarier technology wise as it advances there could also be significant challenges there. We're giving kids access to the internet without a fully developed frontal lobe. And again, I don't want to demonize social media or the internet because there's a billion great things, right? But I think that there's a dark side that I worry about when a kid last week said to me, "Yeah, I made this like new friend and they gave me all these coins and they gave me like V-Bucks." And I'm like, do you know much about them? And they're like, they're a kid like me. And it makes my stomach hurt. So I'm just like, are they? And then so we talk about safety and they're warned about safety, but there's clever predators out there.
Yeah, for sure. So, moving to the opposite side of the spectrum, right? What do you see as the greatest hope or potential for children right now?
Oh yeah, I love girl. I love the fact that this generation is changing the stigma of mental health. They are saving lives by doing so. I was talking intake with kids about because I live and work in the same city. And so I'm like, if you see me in public, you can say hi to me if you want, but I can't say hi to you first. And kids will be like, why? And I'll be like, well, you might be with a friend, and they might be like, who is that? And why does she wear so much purple? And you don't know because I just like it. And they're like, almost across the board, for a long time when I have this conversation, kids say, "But why wouldn't I just say you're my therapist?" And I'm like, "Well, you can. I just can't." And this mom called me once and she's like, "My third grader was told by another third grader on the playground about you. Is that the cutest referral you've ever received?" I'm like, "I'm pretty sure it is." And so like
Oh my goodness.
it was adorable. So I'm like, a lot of times this generation speaks about therapy as like a badge of honor. They're like, yeah, like my therapist. Like, yeah, yeah, one of my clients said like they're like, yeah, my friend's therapist is on vacation all the time. And they say she works hard and plays hard. And my client goes, yeah, well, my therapist works hard and works harder. And I'm like, that's not how I want to be
Right?
known. Like, and so I reached out to a friend. I'm like, we need to plan a trip like real fast.
Right.
Like, I was like, ew. I guess.
Oh
And I'm like,
gosh.
that is not what I want to model. That is
Right.
not what I want to model. And that is what you picked up on because kids. And so, but I think that that it is saving the world. Like because it's removing that stigma, like gives like more people access to like mental health support in ways that didn't exist before because of shame.
Right.
So I love that this generation is like, yeah,
Right.
my therapist. It's
Right. You're like, whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll have clients like, on Snapchat, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, do you wanna watch Willow before our session starts? And like they'll be like with and I'm like, are you snapping? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, so that like that other people know that she's and they're like, yeah. And so people will like reach out to one another, like, oh my God, that's my therapist too. And I'm like,
I
it's
recognize
just
the dog.
yes. And they're like, oh my gosh, is that Stacy's office? I recognize all the purple. And so I think that's healing in so many ways. And it's removing barriers that are necessary in order to save lives.
I love that. Thank you, Stacy. So we have just a few minutes left. So if you would tell everybody where they can connect with you, where to find your book, all the things.
All the things.
All the things.
So I'm sure it'll be in show notes because my name can be misspelled in lots of ways. Thank you for that. I mean, there's a lot to unpack in my own therapy, right? But that's, I guess, one of them. So
That's at the top
author,
of the list, right?
I mean, yeah. Author stacyschaffer.com. And so on that website, you can read about my book. There's a link. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Audible, Spotify, a lot of random places I don't know that I'd never heard of. So thanks for that. But there's a link to those. And then there's also a contact me form. But you can find me on social media at Hope Restored. It's one word on Instagram. And then Stacy Schaffer on Facebook. Yeah. So the authorstacyschaffer.com is the main website. Hope Restored Instagram, Stacy Schaffer on Facebook.
Awesome. Thank you, Stacy, for
Yeah,
taking the
thanks for
time to
having
hang
me.
out with me. And I wish you all the success with the book. It is amazing. I want everybody to go read it. A lot of lessons. And I think there's a lot of takeaways too from the people not in this field, like parents listening to your book and go, oh, wait, I can use this with my kid. And so I love how practical it was, a lot of easy stuff to implement and a lot of things to think about. So thank
Hi,
you.
thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks for hanging out with me on Wait, Am I Saving the World? If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to share it with a friend and follow the show so you don't miss what's next. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and don't forget to make a little time to play. Thank you so much for being here.